Senator Okiya Omtatah is actually on the line, and he has a word or two that just a few minutes that we want to that he would like to share this morning. So let's hear from him. Senator, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. How are you doing? We're having a conversation.
I'm fine.
We're having a conversation about where we are concerning the fifth schedule and, of course, and its implementation, or in this case, lack of implementation, and to hear from you in terms of what your thoughts are around that.
Yes, thank you I've been following the conversation, and as usual, it's a conversation that unfortunately got us into a hole when former AG Muga were in an advisory opinion to the court, or were seeking an advisory opinion from the Supreme Court, asked the question, when will the gender rule, whether the gender rule will be applicable to the 2013 elections or later. Mm-hmm. And so the word gender rule then finds itself in our jurisprudence. The Constitution does not have the damn word, the damn expression gender rule. So when people go on talking about what doesn't exist, I don't know. As regards the composition of Parliament, there was an attempt to have gender parity in both the national and the county assemblies. Along the way, during the review process, it was retained for the county assemblies and taken out for the National Assembly, for the National Parliament. So, in essence, I don't see even why these courts that are pronouncing themselves stand when they say that the composition of Parliament is unconstitutional. When you look at Article 2, Clause 3, I don't have my Constitution, but I think it's Article 2, Clause 3, it's very clear that no provision of the Constitution can be challenged. Number two, during the review process, the people took it out. The only way we can proceed, for me, is by taking it back as a political question to the people themselves. Let the people decide. But to say that the way Parliament is constituted is unconstitutional is arrant nonsense. Whether it comes from the Supreme Court or whether it comes from a sweeper in the High Court or in the lower court.
Senator, where the discussion is this morning is that there's
and I think the question you have asked, what is the end game?
Right.
We have got a first past the post-electoral system.
That's not where we are.
And across the world, it produces more men than women. Look at the US, look at Japan, look at Britain, look at wherever you want to look. Now, the reason she's refusing to answer the question you are asking her is because she knows she's acting in futility. And the courts cannot act in futility. If you want to get gender parity, and even me, I believe it should be 50-50, then we change the electoral system. We go the proportional way, and that requires a major amendment to the Constitution. So we cannot come here and think that we can use the court to reintroduce what the people rejected. The courts are creatures of the Constitution. They are not the makers of the Constitution.
So are we saying, Senator?
So they cannot introduce phrases like gender rule. Gender rule, what rule? A rule is something that you must obey. The word the Constitution uses is a gender principle, something you aspire to.
So what I'm hearing you saying, Senator, here, and I'm just to wrap up this in about a minute, is that if we are actually going what we are looking for in terms of implementation, then you have to go back to the original foundation and tinker with that a little bit in order for this principle or any other issues that need implementation then to actually be achieved?
No, this particular one doesn't need any implementation. It says that you develop this. You see, like right now, Machakos has got a senator who is a woman. He has a governor who is a woman. The same in Nakuru and many other places. They have not done this gender thing they are talking about. What we need is to create an environment where people can compete freely and
not what we're
effectively.
discussing, Senator. Senator, we're talking about.
But to say that Parliament can legislate.
We're talking about the failure by Parliament to legislate on the 5th schedule, and the fact that
Parliament has not. There's nothing that Parliament has failed to legislate in terms of gender. There's nothing that Parliament has failed.
Well, the courts disagree with you there.
There's no requirement that Parliament should reconstitute itself.
No, we're not talking. I think, Senator, you're confusing two issues. You're confusing the composition of Parliament, which it's true does not meet 27(8) and 81(b), which do require that not more than 2/3 of either the members of either body are of one gender, and the failure to enact legislation.
The fact that it is in the Constitution.
We're not talking about that.
No article of the Constitution can defeat another. The fact that it's in the Constitution the way it is, that's how it's going to be.
But that's not what we're talking about. You're confusing the matter. We're talking about dissolution and the dissolution advisory.
Why you are dissolving Parliament for what reason? Parliament is not unconstitutional. And there's no requirement or need to change the composition of Parliament.
So the thing is here, and I think Ken wants to come in. So the thing is here, and Ken wants to come in.
The fifth schedule does not.
But here we are saying...
The schedule does not require Parliament to make any law to change its composition.
That's not what we're talking about, Senator.
The point is here, Senator. Ken, please go.
Yeah, Senator. The elephant in the room is this. There's a need for an enactment of a legislation that support this principle. Yeah. Parliament has failed to enact that supports this principle, not on its composition. So the question is, having failed to come up with a legislation that supports this principle, why don't we do away with Parliament on that account? I think that's the
How do you legislate a principle? The question is, how do you legislate a principle?
The courts have already pronounced themselves on that.
The question is, you cannot legislate. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying that those courts made a wrong pronouncement. You cannot legislate a principle.
Okay, but Senator, respectfully, you can't overrule the courts either.
Okay, he'll go back to court.
Yeah, he can go back to court. Go back to court. Yes, agreed.
Go back to court.
The thing is this.
Yes.
The thing is this.
Yes, Senator.
Okay,
you are stretching 261 to override 203. No, 2 clause 3.
All right.
And that cannot be allowed.
Thank you very much for your insights on that.
There is no gender rule in the Constitution.
Thank you.
Asante Sana, Senator.
There is no gender rule in the Constitution. It's a gender principle, and you cannot legislate a principle. Period.
Asante Sana, thank you very much for your thoughts on that, Senator Asante.